in the news. Let's see what's happened internationally.
All right, so it looks like in Belarus, there's a journalist by the name of Stefan Putillo. And Stefan Putillo told the BBC that he had received death threats in the past, but now he was, quote, taking them seriously, end quote. Mr. Putello founded the opposition social media channel Nexta on Telegram, where Mr. Protasevich had acted as editor. Mr. Protasevich and his girlfriend Sofia Sapega are both in custody in Belarus. The journalist, 26, had said he fears a death penalty after being placed on a terrorism list. Mr. Protasevich, I'm totally botching his name, I'm sorry, and Mrs. Sapega are a 23-year-old Russian national, were detained after Belarus scrambled a military jet to escort their plane flying from Athens to Vilnius in neighboring Lithuania. Yeah, it's crazy. And so it looks like Western countries accuse Belarus of hijacking the Ryanair plane that was rerouted over a supposed bomb threat.
Yeah, there was some controversy surrounding this because they basically were like, it's a hijacking because they took control. They use an excuse to take control of the plane. And the reason why I'm reporting it, quote unquote, as an excuse is because when they took a look at the paperwork, the threat date came in after they had already diverted the plane. So they're saying that this was planned so that they could get hold of it. So it's interesting.
All right.
Okay, and right here at home in California, let's see what's going on.
There you go. Yeah. You got it. You got your shot? Yeah, I just got my shot. I mean, then I owe you $50.
All right, so that was a quick clip of our Governor Gavin Newsom handing out incentives for people who are getting vaccinated. In fact, there's a California Vaccine Incentives Program. It looks like 1.5 million prizes for 10 people who've received one dose, 30 drawings of $50,000, and 50 prepaid debit grocery cards for 2 million newly fully vaccinated people, which is what we were just looking at in that clip right there.
Hey, so this is interesting, right? We know that President Biden a goal of 70%, I believe, vaccinations nationwide by July 4th, I believe, which is about a month or so away, if I'm not mistaken. And so we're seeing a lot of these efforts like this here in California, and I believe here in the city of Sacramento too, but also nationwide. I think this York or the city of New York is actually doing a lottery for tuition for college, for kids who get vaccinated, teens who get vaccinated. So this is something that is becoming more and more common, and we're going to see more and more of this as, of course, we approach the June 15th reopening date. Right here in California, we have the June 15th full reopening date, and we have the recent controversy around masks and can you mask and can you not mask, and how do you know that somebody's vaccinated, right? So interesting, and expect a lot more on this.
Yeah, I just wonder how transparent it's going to be. Are we going to know because the way I'm reading this top one, 1.5 million prizes for 10 people who've received one dose. So does that mean 10 people are going to get $1.5 million a piece if they've received one dose? And I guess people who have already got the 2 doses are just SOL on that one. I guess we will keep watching.
All right, looks like Tacoma police charged with murder in a case where a black man said he couldn't breathe. In Seattle, the Washington State Attorney General on Thursday, this article was written as of May 27th. charged 2 Tacoma police officers with murder and 1 with manslaughter in the death of Manuel Ellis, a black man who died March 3rd, 2020, after telling them he couldn't breathe as he was being restrained. Attorney General Bob Ferguson filed charges of second-degree murder against Christopher Burbank and Matthew Collins and first-degree manslaughter against Timothy Rankin. Witnesses reported seeing Burbank and Collins, who are both white, attack Ellis without provocation, according to a probable cause statement filed in Pierce County Superior Court. Rankin is accused of putting pressure on Ellis's back as the man said he couldn't breathe. The encounter began after officers reported seeing Ellis trying to get into occupied cars at a red light. They cast Ellis as the aggressor, saying he charged as an officer excited a police car. But 2 witnesses who recorded parts of the fatal interaction came forward with identical stories, saying police attacked without provocation. An officer in the passenger side of a patrol car slammed his door into Ellis, knocking him down, and then jumped on him and started beating him, they said.
So March 3rd was the date that this happened, and here we are almost in June. So about 3-month turnaround time to get charges. So are things looking up in the social justice department as far as police and their immunity?
So, I actually want to hear what CO has to say about this because of her work, on the ground, actually. I do want to hear, how someone like, her approaches or interprets or receives this sort of, news, right, and this stuff. And I think, we have to be at a point where at least we realize this is getting worse, not better. This is getting worse, not better. And we have another, lynching, hanging, right? There's something about, that neck, right? That hanging, that taking the breath away from Black people, that just goes, it just goes way back, right? Goes way, and this "I can't breathe," sort of, mantra or whatever however you call it, is getting more and more used. And obviously we have 2 big things in the backdrop. We have one, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, right, which is now which was passed by the House and I believe is on its way in, or it's in negotiation with the Senate, from what I understand. And those negotiations are not looking good. We have President Biden saying he's not going to do any, federal executive order. He's going to leave it to the Congress. So that basically, kills any federal, or any executive action, right? And then also we have in the backdrop, we have the resignation of Patrisse Cullors, right? The BLM co-founders, right? Or over some financial, and I don't want to, alleged financial, and hopefully I'm getting this right. If I'm not, please correct me, and we'll make a retractment. But that's my understanding. So those 2 things are in the backdrop, and then we have case after case. This year had been, we've had probably 3 or 4 very high. There have been hundreds of police murders. So we have all that, and I definitely want to hear, again, what folks like CO have.
Yeah, Chris, you pointed out a lot. I would say my initial response to this is a particular case that I haven't looked into, so all I'm aware of is what I'm seeing is like a positive for this, what we're seeing in front of us. I do agree with you, Chris, that a lot of people are jumping onto that tagline of like, I can't breathe, and we'll start using it, have already started using it in ways that are to forward their purpose, rather than like a literal cry for help, like a cry for existence, really. The comment you made about the George Floyd Act is ever telling of the promises, which historically happens to us, where we complain, we rise up, okay, we're going to do something for you. Our local, state, federal politicians promise us such and then turn around and actually do nothing. I'm pissed about the George Floyd Act that they removed qualified immunity from the as the ask that was supposed to go with that act, and that is the thing that allows one of the things that allows us to hold police accountable. So when they do murder, and when they do lie in their reports, to bring it back to to Tacoma police, where they write in their reports that this black man was the aggressor and charged at them, but we have witnesses, we have cameras that are saying something different, that they can actually be held accountable. Not only them, but also the people who are hiring. Because if I have a kid at a school and the teacher attacks my child, I can go after that individual teacher, but I also can go after the school for bringing in and employing someone who would have such a. As of now, we still can't do that. Whenever we go after them, we're really going after ourselves because that money comes out of city budget. Rather, it doesn't come out of police budgets at all. I feel like I'm talking in circles a little bit, but my initial response is like, to your point, Chris. There's been almost 1,000 people who were murdered in the past year by police since George Floyd. Like, the numbers are only escalating. They're not dwindling. So I don't think that this is looking up. If someone committed a murder, I'm happy that there is a level of like accountability, but our justice system isn't just, and it isn't accountable fully. So I'm a bit of an abolitionist, and I want the police to be eradicated, period, in order to have a place in our system. So that would be justice for me, not just the police being held accountable. That obviously needs to happen.
Thank you for that insight. All right, let's see what's happening at the White House.
Your presence here today is making history. You are the first black woman to stand behind that podium, speaking on behalf of the president in 30 years. Just wondering if you could share your reflections with us.
Well, thank you for the question. You know, it's a real honor to be standing, to just be standing here today. It doesn't, I appreciate the historic nature, I really do. But I believe that, being behind this podium, being in this room, being in this building is not about one person. It's about, what we do on behalf of the American people. Clearly, the president believes in representation matters, and I appreciate him giving me this opportunity. And it's another reason why I think we are all so proud that this is the most diverse administration in history.
So that was Karine Jean-Pierre, the second black woman to ever hold the position of a deputy press secretary in 30 years. So, and she is of Haitian descent. What we have here is meet Judy Smith, the first black woman to lead a White House press briefing. Meet Judy Smith, the real-life Olivia Pope, and the first black woman to lead a White House press briefing. Recently, the Biden-Harris team unveiled the most diverse administration in history, featuring an all-women White House communication staff, several of them being of women of color. While it is a historical moment for sure, this won't be the first time a black woman has headed up the White House press room, according to Yucatan Times. In 1991, Judy Smith made history as the first black woman to lead a press briefing, serving as deputy press secretary for former President George W.H. Bush. Judy A. Smith, born October 27, 1958, is an American crisis manager, lawyer, author, and television producer. All right, so that's the second time a black woman has held that position. Some people are saying that, Simone Sanders again maybe should have been in the running this time after, all of her efforts and loyalty to the Biden administration. So, yeah.
Hey, I have one thing to say on this, one or two things. I was gonna let this one go, but I have one or two things to say because there are some political implications here. And I just want to make the point that listen to what we just talked about, right? Which was, and CO, you corrected me. Thank you. There's over 1,000 people killed by police since George Floyd, right, in the last year. So we just talked about that. We just talked about saying he's not going to do anything that he can do because he has power to do stuff right now. He said he's not going to do anything. He's going to leave it to Congress. We also had Biden start his administration and saying, yo, I'm not going to do nothing for y'all, right? Remember that secret leaked NAACP and others meeting with President Biden, right? Where he said, listen, I'm not doing police reform before the January elections. And now he's saying I'm not doing it afterwards either. Right? So we have that. And then we have what? We have, hey, look at this job we gave one person. Okay? I think it's a slap in the face with you. And I think the fact that we have, even to talk about these first after 400 years here, right, is, it says less about where we are and about where we need to be, right? So I'll stop there.
No, you're exactly correct that, the first, they're still coming after 400 years, and then this is only the second Black woman in over 30 years to hold this particular position. So, yeah, it's nothing really to hang their hats on, but baby steps.
All right, no one has heard about it. You do now. Tulsa Remember and Rise event canceled days before centennial of race massacre after dispute over payment to survivors. The event to mark the 100th anniversary of the destruction of Black Wall Street was to feature singer John Legend and influential Georgia Democrat Stacey Abrams. A cornerstone event of the Tulsa Race Massacre commemoration in Oklahoma was abruptly canceled because lawyers representing survivors and descendants demanded a higher fee for their participation in the event than they had originally agreed upon, a commission official said. Legal representatives for the 3 living survivors approached the Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission about including them in the, quote, Remember and Rise, unquote, occasion in return for $100,000 each and a $2 million seed gift to a reparations coalition fund. State Senator Kevin Matthews, chairman of the commission, said in a Friday press conference. The parties agreed to those terms. That's what he said. So yeah, unfortunately, it has been canceled.
Okay, so I have mixed feelings about this. One, I feel like whatever the Tulsa people want, give it to them, first of all. I don't care what they want, give it to them. Whatever the survivors want, give it to them, because they owe more. And so if we got it, give it to them. That's part one. Part two is this was gonna be a in my opinion, performative, superficial, shallow series of events, because it's not just one event, right? This was a part of a series of events that are and possibly still are going to take place next week. And let's just stop first and acknowledge the fact that we are here at the 100-year anniversary of what happened in Tulsa, and we know we want to pay respect to them on this Memorial Day weekend, right? And acknowledge and also the dozens of other Black Wall Streets and Tulsas all around the country that were razed and burned and pillaged and plundered in the same way, right? So, and the generations that came after that were made homeless and had to, and lost wealth. So let's stop here for a second and acknowledge that. But I do want to go back to the last point and talk the politics of this, right? And again, we have to start with where we are in reality with black folks. We just talked about what's going on with the police killing black folks situation. It's getting worse. We black folks had a bunch of damage from the pandemic, economically, physically, all of that. We lost 40-50% of black-owned businesses just in the last year. That's not, going anywhere. That's not done. That's not something that we can just not deal with, right? We lost, tens of thousands of black people, like literally to death from a virus and stuff that came from the virus, right? So this is where black people are. And then you have an administration and a party. And let's talk about this party, right? Because the Stacey Abrams piece is key here, right? And the John Legend piece is key too, because he's been used, very, very often as a way to culturally bring in, black folks to the politics of the Democratic Party, which is very effective. That works, okay? Like, that celebrity works, right? So he's important, but Stacey Abrams is the real focus here, because she's a superstar right now in the Democratic Party, right? And she's got a lot going for her in terms of what's coming for her next. But this is going to be very performative, because the party that she represents has done nothing for black folks since taking office. Zero, and they're getting ready to go tell us to vote again. Okay, and that's what Stacey Abrams represents. So I don't mind that this was canceled, to be honest with you. And there was another great event this weekend in Tulsa, by the way. I believe it's the Black Power Conference. I believe it's put on by some very awesome organizers in Texas and around Texas, and they're in Tulsa right now. And check them out. They've got stuff from their event coming right now, and that's an organic grassroots event series talking about the 100-year anniversary of Tulsa. This stuff that's supposed to be going on next week is, to be honest with you, and I'm just gonna keep it real, is disrespectful. Okay, when you have a party put on this sort of event, and the party is doing, in some ways, the same thing that happened to Tulsa to the rest of us right now.
Agreed that they should give the survivors whatever they want, and it doesn't say it in this slide here, but in another article I read, it did say that this commission, Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission, has raked in over $30 million using Tulsa for tourism, things of that nature, to profit and benefit. So to only offer the survivors $100,000 for their participation in the first place is a big slap in the face, and I'm glad it's canceled too. And in the article that I read, just like you just said, Chris, the commemoration will continue. There are other groups working on separate events, so this is not really a big loss. All right. Patrisse Cullors, Black Lives Matter co-founder, resigns. Patrisse Cullors said Friday would be her last day at the foundation, which she has led for the last 6 years. 37-year-old activist finances came under scrutiny last month after it was reported that she owned 4 homes. Ms. Cullors said that she would step down from the Black Lives Matter global network to focus on forthcoming second book, The Abolitionist Handbook, and a TV development deal with Warner Brothers highlighting Black stories. And I'll just skip down to the end here. Ms. Cullors appeared to hold back tears as she told the Black News Channel last month that suggestions of financial impropriety against her were categorically untrue and incredibly dangerous. the grieving parents of Michael Brown, Breonna Taylor, two African Americans whose death at the hands of white police officers were often cited by Black Lives Matter last month, reportedly complained that the organization had done nothing to help them. So, Chris, you mentioned Patrisse Cullors stepping down earlier when we were talking about some police reform. So, do you think that this is a big loss for the, police brutality justice movement? How do you think this is going to shake out?
So I don't know. I'm not so connected to the Black Lives Matter Global Network, and I actually do want to hear what tHE has to say about this too, because I'm interested to know how this plays or how this news, matters. Does it matter to folks working on the ground, and how much the Black Lives Matter Global Network matters to the work that folks like her are doing on the ground down there in LA. So I do want to hear what tHE has to think again on this. The only thing I'll say is there is to your question directly, Kim. Let me answer your question directly again. Be concise. I don't think this is a big shakeup, because it sounds like she's still going to be working in the field, right, and in the space. She's doing a book right now, which is probably going to be read by millions of people, right, when it comes out. Right, millions of people who, and some of those folks are doing work on the ground. So, and she's a young woman. I was surprised to learn she's 37. She's the same age as me. Okay, so she's a pretty young woman. She's got a lot of time ahead of her, and I'm not making any commentary on what the allegations were, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just talking about from the perspective of the work here. And she's let's just keep it real. She's an accomplished woman at this point in terms of the organizing work around this issue. There will be things that people can learn from her in the book. There will things that people can learn not to do also, right? I'm sure, just like everybody. So but in terms of your question, I don't think this is a huge shakeup.
Yeah, I'm not really thrilled with Black Lives Matter work output. I mean, just like the stuff on twerking on Capitol Hall and Capitol Hill, and some of the stuff that they put out is questionable. And we've all seen the stories about the, who's funding this organization and their actual mission. All you have to do is head over to the website to read their mission statement on that one there. And then on this line about her pinning a TV development deal, I don't know if she's the best person to be highlighting and telling Black people's stories, but that's just my opinion.
Hey, let me jump in here. So I'm just gonna be, for like clarity, or what do you call it? Just so everybody is aware. Like, I used to be the arts and culture co-lead for BLM LA. I live in Los Angeles, so I'm close to this. And then on top of that, before BLM blew up, I was personal friends with Patrisse Cullors as a result of activism on the ground. So just so that everyone understands what perspective I'm coming from, or stuff that will influence what I'm about to say. There's a lot. BLM as an organization versus the Black Lives Matter movement are two very separate things. And I think when George Floyd, like in 2020 when everything blew up, people assumed that BLM was doing what we assumed they to be doing instead of what they were actually doing. And I say that as formerly working with them, and I split with them because I wanted to affect more change than they were. And I can't speak to what they're doing now. I'm only from the outside looking in at this point. But I can tell you, none of the funds, and as they say in this article, there's no evidence to suggest that Patrisse, has been using funds inappropriately. And I say that for all of the women/men who are leading BLM. Period. On the federal, on the national level, and on NLA level. I can't speak to anywhere else because I've never been a part of any other location. But Patrice, like stepping down from here, I'm sure is a political move. I'm guessing that. I haven't had a conversation with her about it, but I'm guessing it's just a political move. Patrice has been like grassroots organizer from the jump in LA for years, long before anybody even knew the hashtag BLM. So whether she leaves this, now that she's leaving this organization, she will continue to do that, and she will continue to do it with her life. I do think that this attack on the BLM and everybody going after her and other folks' finances is a bit of is real shisty. I personally would be like, yo, let's go after where BLM's funds are actually going. But the way everything is set up, like I can tell you, like for LA, the GoFundMe pages and everything is not even in Patrice's name. Like it's literally in the chapter leader's name, Melina Abdullah. So I would ask where that money is going. What are we doing there? But we all know once you become a celebrity, people pay you, right? So everybody, as soon as BLM like blew up, everybody was asking for those top 3 women to come do speeches here, to come do there. I agree. I absolutely have the criticism of some of that money should be going back to the families. And it was one of my arguments, and part of the reasons why I left BLM LA is the fact that we weren't doing more for the families of the Black men whose names we were picking up and running with, and using their likeness, using their names, and doing events and everything in the name of them. And sometimes we had the family's blessing, and sometimes we didn't. So that I agree with some of the criticism that is out there, and I agree. But I'm a fan of like, yo, if y'all are fighting for freedom, go fight for freedom. If I don't agree with it, I'm gonna go over here and join with the people who I do agree with. So there's a reason why I left BLM. And there's a reason why I don't go to them or I don't use them as a resource. If people ask me, yo, where to donate money, I don't throw their name up. But there are people who do. And because there is good work that they do, you just need to understand who they are and what the work is that they do, rather than expecting them to do what you want them to do. Right? Like they're a 501c3, so they can't back, they can't run a political candidate. They literally can't, even if they wanted to. Right? Can they give money to the families? I think they can, and I do think they should. But those are the people who are running it. And I tried to be one of those folks who was like, all right, join the organization and help steer it from the inside rather than being just a critic on the outside. And it didn't work for me, which doesn't mean that it can't work for other people. But the attack that was on Patrice, I felt like was completely unjust and didn't quite make sense, particularly when there were other realistic and viable things to go after if you're questioning this organization.
Okay, thank you for that insight, because definitely the perception from the outside was looking like she was running off with the bag. Glad for the clarity. All right.
Kyrie Irving launches consulting firm for minority-owned businesses. Let's see here. Kyrie Irving has started a consulting firm that will provide mentoring and coaching services to Black and women-owned businesses. On Monday, May 10th, the NBA star announced that his KAI Family Foundation has partnered with Lockstep Ventures to create KAI 11 Counseling. They have raised over $25 million to invest in about 20 businesses. Quote, we must give our people the proper resources and stewardship for them to win beyond traditional investment vehicles, said Irving. This is not only essential to closing the wealth gap, but it also fosters a more unified, empowered, and liberated society, end quote. The first investment of $250,000 will be provided as seed money to Fleeting, an Atlanta-based Black-owned commercial trucking company that is committed to hiring women and those who were formerly incarcerated. Fleeting will gain additional resources to increase their social impact. So, yep.
I've got dipping on this and I'm glad we're talking about this. I can talk about business. I love to get to talk about business. as someone who is a business owner, right? Owner of Psych Black Biz, Sacramento County, Sacramento City, the largest and most awesomest marketing and social media provider, database, marketplace for Sacramento-based Black-owned businesses, and we do it with a smile. So I get to talk about business, which is awesome. And I want to say a couple things. One, I am happy that Kyrie's doing this, to be honest with you. I think it's a good idea. I think he should do it. I think we're gonna need more of this. Just knowing and talking to Black business owners every single day, it's definitely something that we need, which is different kinds of, as they were talking about in the article, they said it in some fancy words, but basically we need ways to get money for our businesses and get that are not through banks and not through these old school ways of getting money but never give us money, right, for our businesses, right? So this is something that I think needs to happen, and to be honest with you, coming out of the pandemic when we lost 40% of Black-owned businesses, it's right on time, right? But there's one thing that he said there that, or I think that was him being quoted. There's one thing that he said about what he's doing that is incorrect. Everything else was correct. And that is that this was going to close the wealth gap. This is not going to close the wealth gap.
Yeah, I picked up on that too.
Yeah, yep. It's not. It's definitely going to unify. It's definitely going to help struggling Black business owners. That's what we want to see, right? Especially coming out of this pandemic, right? We lost 40% Black businesses, right? So we need everybody with money. If you want to bring the NBA money, bring the NBA money, right? And let's get it to Black business owners right now, to be honest with you, because the feds and the state and the local governments did do something, but they did not do enough and as much as they could. And the funds didn't reach, obviously, enough Black-owned businesses because we lost 40%, right? So let's get all the capital we can, but it's not going to close the wealth gap, right, at all. It's not. The only thing that's going to close the racial wealth gap is reparations. And so what he's trying to do will work a lot better when there are reparations. Imagine all of us with the seed capital to do something like that, right? All of us, right? That's a different kind of world, right? So that's one I want to point out there, and like I said, I'm glad he's doing it, and people do it.
Great point, Chris, and shout out to Sac Black Biz.
Shout out. All right, I guess we need to look into signing ETM Media Group up for this consulting group. Get some seed funding that way.
Yes, I think we should definitely reach out to Mr. Irving.
All right, will do.
Well, number one, my ancestry, my ancestors come from the Caribbean, and there were slaves in the Caribbean, and we didn't
qualify for the American reparations.
Well, here's the challenge. There are so many difficulties with trying to enact reparations, in part because the question is who gets them. Depending on how you define being a recipient of historical discrimination, potentially I could fall into that category. So could Rachel Dolezal, who identifies as a Black person. And so the question is, who receives them? Who determines that? How do you pay for it? I've seen an estimate that they would cost maybe $14 trillion to pay out, and the feasibility is just not there. Rasmussen earlier this year found that 66% of Americans do not support giving out reparations, and it's because of this idea that the people who would be receiving them are not the people who have been injured, who are truly enslaved. You're talking about 2-3 generations removed, and how do you even prove that that person who was in slavery was your grandparent? The authentication of it. So, Trish, there are a lot of challenges with reparations, and I think if we want to talk about, how do you improve the Black community and help the Black community, that's a conversation that needs to be had. Not holding out this 40 acres and a mule, which I honestly have called a pipe dream in the past, and I think that's what it is.
So, speaking of reparations, that didn't sound like an ally to me.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts so much.
Yeah, I mean the one thing, and I'm sure CEO and Chris, you want to jump in, but the one thing that I definitely do want to point out in terms of her saying that, I could be wrong, we had to go back take a look at the clip, but I think she did mention about trying to trace. I think she said your grandparents or great grand. You know how easy that is? Like, it's only what 2-3 generations, and we got records of that. I mean, the sense, like, anyway. I thought that was one of the most ridiculous statements that came out of that young lady's mouth. But yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I no, oh no. See, I was gonna say something real quick. She acting like she don't know her grandmama.
Right?
CEO, I come in after you.
Let's jump in here. A lot of the things that was communicated in that statement just infuriates me and always gets my blood boiling. Like the point that everybody just touched on, like we know who our grandparents were, right? One. To the idea that slavery, like once slavery ended, that was it, and there's no residue, there's no trickle down, and there's not even a revamping of that mentality, right? What I feel like what most folks want to ignore or just don't understand or forget to take, I don't know what it is, but it's the idea that, okay, slavery is over, but the thinking, the mindset behind what created those conditions evolved just as everything else evolved, just as fashion evolved, just as like school, like philosophies, just everything evolves with time. So we can trace down to today in 2021 how we are currently be affected. And you can look at that like facial recognition programs are still racist. Right? You look at school numbers, they are racist, like no matter what. So even though slavery, that specific institution, had a quote unquote end date, even though it didn't, because based on the amendment, it really just regulated it to being those who have been convicted of a crime is legal to be enslaved, but otherwise not. So in reality, that idea that, oh, slavery is done and we're good, that is a huge issue. Like this idea that reparations is a pipe dream is another issue that I have. Of that's like me saying, oh well, my grandpa hit your car and he never paid, and since your family can't ever have another car again, like y'all are good. So what? It happened so long ago. So what? Y'all still taking the bus? So what? Y'all gotta walk everywhere. So what? Y'all late and you have to spend actually 3 hours commuting and not with your family. Like none of that matters because this happened so long ago. It's all of that stuff that just infuriates me. And then even just the idea of like, we understand that slavery was a multinational institution, an effort, right? There are multi-countries that were involved in this, but and multi-countries should be held accountable for the work that they did. But here in North America, within these United States, we're specifically going after those that immediately impeded us. Right? So we are going after the American government, and with AB 3121, we're specifically going after the California government to address their participation. So those who are affected by that should be the recipients, not anyone else, right? Then does that mean that the folks in the Caribbean shouldn't have their day? Absolutely. But who they go after and when they go after and how they go after those folks who need to pay the reparation is different than how we are going about it. I'll hop off my soapbox.
Well
yeah,
said.
that whole clip was definitely problematic, and of course the issue with skin folk, all skin folk ain't kin folk is with what they say. But you see a black person with these dangerous talking points or against reparations. The white woman reporter sounded like more of an ally than that chick. So. It's an uphill battle.
Just one thing on this, or maybe one or two quickly. The points that CEO made are spot on. The points that you made, Kim, are spot on. The same as you, Moya. This is And so let's just, for the record, I think the clip is right. This is a little bit right. This is like a year old, right? I'm not. I don't remember a year or so old, right? And this is Fox, or was that Fox? I'm not sure if that was Fox. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, and this is a black woman who is one of our black immigrant brothers and sisters, right, from one of the islands, right? I believe. So two things. One, CO, you made the right point. One, we know who our people are. We know who we are, and our eligibility criteria sounds like this, right? It sounds like you have to, one, be able to demonstrate that you have at least one ancestor who was enslaved in these United States by these United States, right? And then you also have to be someone who self-identifies as black. Okay, you have to satisfy both of those, right? So he would not qualify according to that standard, and that's okay. Right? It's just like I would not qualify for the reparations from her government, right? And that's totally fine. And so that's the first part. We have a pretty clear set of criteria. And then the second thing is this argument. I want to test this new argument against this, hey, slavery was a long time ago thing, right? Okay, so they were saying that to the ex-slaves. Okay, so and some of my reading I came across, if you read it, they were if you read what was going on right in the years after slavery, they were saying that to our literal enslaved ancestors. They were saying, listen, slavery was 10 years ago. It's time for y'all to pick yourselves up by your bootstraps. Okay? Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, we just left you. But now it's time to live the American dream. Pick yourself up by your bootstrap. Okay? So the same people that were saying that back then are saying that. All right? So that point is dead, right? And so now it's time to be serious and do what we have to do, which is, one, really get stronger language into the National Reparations Bill, so that it's actually the National Reparations Commission bill, rather, so that it's actually strong enough to actually do what we needed to do, and then or replace that with something that's way better, right? And then here in California, we have to set a good example for what something that's better could look like with our AB 3121 task force, as CO said. So let me stop there.
And Chris, just to elaborate on this, and it looks like there needs to be further investigation, but there is somebody by the name of Sylvester McGee, go on Wikipedia, claimed May 29th, 1841. He passed away on October 15th, 1971, purported to be the last living former American slave. So, yeah, I mean, if this is true, we're talking about somebody who passed away, may rest in power, in 1971, fam.
1971. Think about that, and then also think about this too. So, always when you hear this argument, right? Always, obviously say everything we said, but then also take it and use it as an opportunity to talk about why your case is about slavery and Jim Crow. What came after that, right? That's whenever people say that, these are opportunities, right? When I hear, COU would say, you make your blood boil. It made my blood boil too, but it was boiling, hot, happy, because I'm like, yeah, say all that crazy stuff, so I could pick it apart, right, and use it as an opportunity. And now, don't let me be on a big platform, because now I'm making people know what the real deal is about what we're saying and what about reparations is really about. And we live, with the current impacts of it today, right? We are the injured of it today. We're injured primarily in our wealth, which is the biggest part of it, but we're injured in every way. Right? So keep that in mind too.
Okay, well, I'm definitely excited about AB 3121, the first task force meeting scheduled to take place on June 1st. So anybody listening to this program, subscribe and share with all of your networks so everybody knows where to come back to get all their AB 3121 California Reparations Task Force news.
There you go. That's in the news.